What's up, guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about uh, NASCAR Heat 5 704 games. What's going on? Where are these guys headed? Honestly, there is little to no information. But since the last video, I've learned that Justin Sutton is going to be the community manager for 704. So I got a couple of things I want to say in regards to that, and just the direction of this company going forward. There's a lot of questions, right? We don't have any answers yet, so all I can do is speculate as usual. But there's a few things that really concern me and that I find a bit disturbing. As far as having a new community manager, I'm always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. I hope that this guy is cool and keeps us up to date and gives us information, or, you know, actually listens to the community in a way that, some of the guys that were here before did at least a decent job of. Guys like Sean Wilson and Zane. But the big thing that sticks out to me right now, just off the bat, is the fact that didn't 704 close down the esports thing, and didn't they get rid of Zane, who was I believe, the community manager? I might be wrong what the actual title was, but he was that liaison, right, in terms of communicating on social media. So I don't understand why he had to go, and now you're just hiring someone else to do the same job. That's a big question to me, as I don't know why that happened. Maybe he wanted to leave, I don't know, but there is something weird there. But even more strange is, like I said, 704 shut down their esports division. This was just a couple months ago. And all of a sudden, all you hear about when it comes to this franchise is online racing and this fucking Pro League shit. So, where is this esports thing? Where does it fit in? I thought they closed down the whole esports division. And when you go on Twitter, as I periodically do go on there and I check just to see if there's what's going on, 99.9% of the tweets on there are all talking about this Pro League bullshit. And man, I got a lot to say about that, but I don't get it. If they shut down this esports division, it just looks to me like they're rebranding. This is... Then the article that I talked about with Steve Hood, who is now technically 704's president, right? In my last video, I had talked about how Motorsports Games, who was headed by Steve Hood, had controlling interest in 704. But he is now listed as the president. It might seem like it's not a big deal, but I just think it's official confirmation that he's the guy in charge of everything. So where these guys are going, it's completely... I think he's the captain of the ship now. And that really worries me. I don't see anything that makes me feel confident that 704 is going to continue in the direction of at least improving the offline content and the career mode. All I hear from these people are changing the landscape of the gaming community. What the fuck does that mean? Some people got excited with that article, but like I told you guys in that other video, it's all fluff. It's just bullshit. A bunch of words that don't mean anything. And it's the kind of thing you see and hear from a company that's trying to rebrand itself. So why does that disturb me? Because it just tells me that they're not actually trying to address the real problems with this series, which I've clearly stated a million times, have everything to do with the career mode, the off-track content, the lack of presentation, the lack of a narrative, of a storyline, a career-building feeling of accomplishment that's completely lacking from all these NASCAR games, the type of things that we see in every other sports game, including another racing title that we know of from Codemasters as the Formula One series. Those guys get it. So the only community that has to deal with a lack of all this shit is the NASCAR community. So I am really concerned about where these guys are going. And I do see from time to time people make assumptions, like from that article, and I don't want to name names, but there are people out there. They'll put up videos or they'll go on Twitter and they interpret what they want to see, but not the reality. And I know bullshit when I hear it. And so far, everything I've heard from this motorsports entity, it's a media company. And it's all fluff. And they never really get into detail about how it is they're going to change the landscape of game. You don't need to change the landscape of gaming. You need to catch up to what everyone else is doing, because these games are embarrassingly outdated. Now, I've been very supportive of 704, as you guys know. I give them credit where it's due. And NASCAR Heat 4 was a big improvement in gameplay. And they've managed to get the actual gameplay, which is the most important thing. They've gotten it to where it's really solid. I'm really happy with the actual on-track racing. It's better than anything we've ever had in a NASCAR game. And that includes NASCAR 2004 Thunder. In terms of, I'm just talking about the actual gameplay. Racing on the track against the AI. It's the best that we've received. Now, is it perfect? No. They still got to keep tweaking on it, working on things, but I'm happy with the racing. It's just what happens before and after these races, which is bare bones, and that's where these guys should be focused on. But instead, all I hear about, all I see on Twitter is Pro League this, Pro League that. So my interpretation is they're not walking away from esports. I don't know what happened with the shutting down of the esports division. Sounds to me like they're just retooling and they're going to keep pushing forward with this business model, which I to this day I don't understand it. I've tried to look into it. I tried to figure out how is it that these people make a viable business that's profitable from competitive online gaming. And I could almost understand with other types of games, maybe it helps boost game sales. Maybe people are so into that they're going to go and buy these games just to be able to compete online. I don't know the answer to that, but I could almost accept it as a thing for other types of games. But everything that we've seen with NASCAR so far is that this is not a thing. It's not something that's going to take off. I don't even know how many people really are hardcore into this shit, but it's a small, tiny market. This isn't the type of thing that's going to sell NASCAR games. You want to sell more games, you have to improve the actual game itself. This thing is they're so outdated and far behind everything every other sports title is doing. I don't get it. I really don't. And it just looks to me like they're only focused on online multiplayer racing, which I still haven't seen anything to change my mind. I've been saying this for years. Online racing will never, ever be a substitute for a really solid, well done offline career mode. It just isn't. And it doesn't. Now, first of all, even if I want to ignore the obvious issues with online racing, right? I'm talking about on consoles. They still don't have really solid running servers. There are issues with lag bubbles and all kinds of stuff that people complain about, glitches, racing online, right? So if you want to, even if you want to ignore all the technical shit that they haven't been able to perfect, online racing will always fail because of people. There's no fix for people. Most of the people that are racing online are just wrecking people. They don't even care to race long. They don't want the NASCAR experience. They just want to be in a vehicle on a NASCAR sanctioned track playing bumper cars. So how do you attract people to something like that? This is why I care more about career mode, because that's the only place you're ever going to get something that resembles a real life NASCAR career or experience. This is the type of thing that every other sports title nails. And as bad as NBA 2K has gotten, they deserve a lot of criticism. But the one thing that they nailed many years ago and has made the 2K sports franchise what it is the career mode. They understand the importance of creating a narrative, a story, where you feel like you actually progress through a career from the beginning, whether it's playing in college and being drafted into the NBA, or playing overseas and getting invited to see if you can get a spot on a roster on an NBA team. There's an actual fleshed out narrative. And everything you do, you know there's a payoff. When you play a game in NBA 2K, depending how you play, whether you win or lose, depending on how your stats turn out, it leads to some type of presentation, cutscenes, all kinds of things that all come together and make you feel like, hey, I'm a living, breathing NBA athlete. And I look forward to seeing what happens as I progress through my career. I look forward to seeing what happens when I get contract offers or commercial endorsements, how that turns out. To this day, I still remember vividly the first time I saw a commercial starring me, with my face scanned NBA created player in the game, starring in a Nike commercial. To this day, and that game, I think it was NBA 2K 13 or 14. It was one of those. But it was, I think, the first time that the face scan was a thing. I actually bought the game because I was so curious and interested to have that kind level of customization, that I could scan my face and I could actually create a player that looks exactly like me, and it worked brilliantly. So to see myself in a commercial, in the game, play out throughout the career, it's just, that's the type of thing that you remember, that has an impact on you as a gamer. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but all the things they do within those games immerses you in that world. That's what these games are supposed to be. It's a video game. So these are the things that have been missing from NASCAR games forever. So when I look at these NASCAR games, I'm constantly reminded of why they fall short and why we keep waiting year after year and not getting any of these things. And the only excuses we get is that, oh, they're a small developer. They're a small... Well, how many fucking times are we going to hear that? At some point, if you are a small developer, you got to do something. So, you know, do you have to push out a game every year? You don't have to. You could, how about take a year off? I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. But if all you're going to be able to do is push out a slight improvement over the previous year, and it's just more or less a cut and paste rehash, why do it? Take a year off, add another year of development time, so that when the game finally comes out, it is a whole new experience. I'm not going to keep pushing that narrative, because then you got to wonder, well, if they're a small company, can they afford to go a year without releasing anything? Can they survive as a company? And the answer to that is probably not, because that's the only game that these guys make. So they're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So I do kind of understand why they have to do this yearly business model, which I hate, because I always think it's going to eventually lead to games hitting a wall, which is what we're seeing with the NBA 2K franchise. But the real issues with them have more to do with microtransactions, DLC, a whole bunch of other shit. But in all honesty, even the career mode, they're running out of things. You know, it's getting stale. But you look at, mark my words, as good as the Formula One series is by Codemasters, that's also a yearly business model. There is going to come a time where people are going to start asking or saying, they're starting to hit a wall, you know, in terms of innovation or ideas, right? Because where they are now is pretty damn good, right? So those games are really solid, and they got a fully fleshed out career mode. All of the things that I want to see in a NASCAR game, Codemasters has been doing already. But, like I said, this, pumping out those games every year, it's just a matter of time before they're going to hit a wall at some point. But that's neither here nor there. My real concern is, what the fuck's going on at 704? There is no real information, right? So this guy, Justin Sutton, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully he comes in and maybe he does a better job of listening to the community and maybe relaying the things we want to the people that make those decisions at 704, and which we don't know who that is really, right? There has to be someone who's in charge of the direction of the development of these games, who makes the act. At some point somebody has to make the call, like, hey, we're going to do this, and this with this game this year. That's what we're going to work on. But we don't know any of these things because they're not very forthcoming with information. And like I said, if you go look for it, all you find is information about Pro League. And I tell you, my stomach turns every time I read something or I see a video or someone talking about Pro League this, Pro League that. Am I missing something? I mean, you guys could tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's this massive following and these people are going ape shit over Pro League and this esports shit. I haven't seen any evidence of it. And at the end of the day, this is a console-based video game. And I think that trying to turn this into a vehicle for competitive online racing is a huge mistake for many of the reasons I've already mentioned, right? They're not equipped to even have right now, first of all, if anybody who's hardcore into sim racing, they are already invested in iRacing. Or I'm not a sim racer, so I don't know. Maybe there are other communities, R Factor or something else. But the top of the list when it comes to sim racing is iRacing. So if I was that hardcore about sim racing and racing online against real people, I would have already joined iRacing. That's not what I care about. And online multiplayer racing for a game console is never going to work. And I've been saying this for as long as I can remember, and nothing has changed my mind. And then a company as small as 704 is supposed to come along and change that? How? You have you're light years away from even having servers good enough where everything runs flawlessly. So even if you nail that end of it, you still have no way to really police the way people race. It should. I fucking hate online racing. My entire experience, and I do try it from time to time. And every time I try it, I'm just reminded of how horrible online racing is. And for the life of me, I don't understand why people waste their time on it. Unless that's their enjoyment. They just like doing these quick 5% races, just run around Daytona and Talladega for 5 or 6 laps and just wreck everybody and then sit in the lobby, waste more of your time, and then wash, rinse, and repeat and do that shit all day. I don't know how people do it. That is not how I want to spend my time. And when I play these games, I want to be immersed into the world of NASCAR. That doesn't feel like NASCAR at all. You're just racing on NASCAR licensed tracks with NASCAR licensed stock cars. That's where it ends. There's nothing else in online racing that vaguely even gives you an idea of what NASCAR is about as a sport. It's a joke. I'm going to try to put in the description box a link to a video. There's someone else who posted a great video speaking about all of this, and he explains it so much better than I do, but I think it's worth watching. So I'm going to try to post a link in the description box. Check it out, and I co-sign everything he said. And basically, it's the type of stuff I've been talking about for years. So I don't know what's going on at 704. And I'm trying to keep an open mind that they come out with some real information. Maybe this Justin guy, as community manager, comes out and he addresses all of these things. And maybe he is, going to do a decent job. Sean Wilson, I didn't always, I didn't always agree with the way that 704 went about marketing or even communicating with people, but at least they communicated with the community, which is far better than I could say about other game developers who completely ignore their consumer base. So I got to give Sean Wilson a lot of credit. And what's going to happen now? And to me, he was probably the highest person in the food chain who actually had a direct link with what was actually the decision making for these games. I'm not saying that he was the guy who actually decided how NASCAR Heat 4 was going to be, for instance, but he was definitely in that bubble. So I don't know, man. I don't understand. Like, they shut down esports. They got rid of Zane, who I do think was the community manager before. But now you just got someone else, and you're continuing to push this Pro League garbage. That's all you see on Twitter. I did drop a few tweets. I'm not a Twitter guy, but I joined recently just to do that. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know. It's too early to tell. But the Daytona 500 is right around the corner. So I think it would be a good time to start talking about this next game. One more thing before I go. The next-gen consoles are coming out at the end of the year, or at the latest early 2021. I know that Steve Hood in that whole magazine article talked about the next gen and how eventually they're going to be working on that, but I would think that right now every major developer already has developer kits for both the Xbox Series X, the tissue box, and the PS5. So my thing is this. I'm assuming that these guys haven't even delved into the idea of starting to work on something for the next gen. Because if they did, he might have already mentioned that in that article, which that's not how it came across. It just feels to me like these guys are always behind. They're always late to the game. Right now, if I was in charge at 704, we would already have been working on the next gen. I would have already been all over these developer kits, and but they're a small company, as we always hear. But I don't know, man. I'd like to know what's going on. What are these guys planning for NASCAR E5? The only thing I remember is that they are working on trying to get have the player have full control of the car under caution and in the pits, which is great. I'm all for that. But again, that's part of the gameplay and on-track part of the game, which to me, that is already the best part of the game. So yes, I'm all for continuing to improve that. But if they're working on things like that, what's actually happening with the off-track part of the career mode? So I'd like to know. And I'm sick to death of this fucking Pro League online racing bullshit. I'm sorry, guys. Some of you may not agree with that. But for the life of me, I don't see the appeal. And I don't think it's ever going to drive game sales up. And these guys have tried everything. They've sold these games with ticket vouchers, right? Which is to me a gimmick, and it's a sign of desperation. They also sell the game for $50, which is not even the industry standard. So they're not even confident enough to ask you for the same $60 every game charges. Now I know a lot of you guys are going to say, "Well, good. I don't want to pay $60. If I could pay less, it's better for us." That's not my point. My point is that they know that the product they're pushing out the door is not even worth calling a fully fleshed out game. So they know. They feel like, well, if we ask for a little bit less, nobody could really complain. If we throw in a ticket voucher, they can't really complain because they're getting a deal. And what I'm telling you is that as a marketing strategy, it's not really a good marketing strategy because it shows that there's no confidence in the product. So I've given these guys a lot of the benefit of the doubt, but now they're under new management. We don't know where these guys are going. And everything I've heard so far from this Monster Games, entity where Steve Hood is now the president of 704, it's all about fucking Pro League and esports and all this bullshit. So I'm not really confident, man. I am really negative on my outlook. And that can change. And I hope it does. Maybe they come out sometime soon and they start telling us about what they're really working on and what their vision is for the future. But it's not going to matter if these guys don't make that investment to hire more help, get more people involved, where they can actually push this game franchise into at least the current gen. They're not even at the level of current sports titles or even current racing games. So what's going to happen when next gen comes out? Everyone else is going to be already on top of that, and these guys are going to be like, what? They're going to start developing for the next gen after the consoles come out? And then what? They got to start from scratch, I'm assuming. And then what? Are they going to expect us to sit through another cycle of games promising that, stick with us. We're a small developer, and eventually, we're going to get this thing to what people want. You can't afford to do that again. They did it with Heat Evolution. After coming from the disastrous cycle of games from Eutechnics, that first Evolution, NASCAR Heat Evolution, the first game from this company was an absolute disaster. It was a bare bones demo. So this is what happens when you got a small company and they're also pushing out games every year. This yearly business model. So what can I possibly feel confident about? I don't see it. I don't. And I don't get excited about online racing. I damn sure don't want to hear about Pro League. I don't fucking get it. And they're pushing the shit out of this. Go on Twitter and look. That's all you see is one tweet after the next. Talking about joining Pro League and signing up and qualifying. I don't give a fuck. And I really want to know the actual number of people who follow this stuff. And then they talk about there's some over $200,000 in prize money for this shit. I don't fucking get it, man. I don't know what else to say. There's really no new news, but I just wanted to talk about that. I do try to find news all the time. It's hard. And these guys I'd love for them to put out some kind of a forum. And that doesn't sound like something that's in their plans. They're going to continue to do this Facebook, Twitter, whatever. So this other social media shit that it's confusing. And, have one place where all your consumer base can go to and congregate and discuss, the game and the community, and you can come on there as a company and have that interaction with people instead of branching out over all these other Twitter, Facebook, and all this other bullshit. But again, I've been saying this shit for years, and they don't seem to be listening. So those are my thoughts. If there's any information I'm not privy to, let me know. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they come out and they, get me feeling better about the outlook of where this franchise is going. But the next game is the 5th game in the series, and I'm just sick and tired of giving them or grading them on a curve and giving them a lot of credit for things. And like I said, NASCAR Heat 4, as far as on-track racing, I am very happy with it. It provides a very entertaining race experience. It's not perfect. There are issues. There are things they can improve on. And I like the idea of, them giving us the option of controlling the cars under caution and through the pits and all that, but not at the cost of taking time and resources away from working on the off-track stuff and the rest of the career mode. I'm just sick and tired of this shit. And, there are times where people have said to me, hey, why don't you try the Codemasters, the Formula One series? They seem to have created a game that is right up your alley, what the type of things you want in a NASCAR game. And my answer to that is, while I'm sure I would love the career mode, I'm not really a Formula One guy. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Formula One is more of a road course type series, and I'm not into this. I'm a stock car guy. I'm an old school stock car guy. For those of you who make fun of NASCAR and say it's just, going left and going in circles, I love that stuff. All right, it's not for everyone, but it's for me. That's what I want. I want a NASCAR game. These Formula One cars are not my cup of tea, and for me, they're like airplanes on wheels. It's a completely different discipline, and I'm not into road courses. I'm not. So, maybe, think of that whatever you will, but I'm not a Formula One guy, but that's why I don't play, those games, because it's not for me. So that's all I want to say about that. So I look forward to your comments, and I'll hopefully get, once we get any news, I'll talk about it then. See you guys.